So the problem with the needs fixed file is that it's not a straight out of camera image. It's we can basically tell if we open using a hex editor that it has been resaved by a Adobe application, I assume Photoshop. If we look at the straight out of camera file, we don't see this Photoshop information. That giveaways also the fact that the file modified by Photoshop is larger than the straight out of camera image. And basically what Photoshop does when it resaves a file, it entirely re-encodes the JPEG file. So if you look at the raw data, it will be totally different from the raw data from the straight out of camera file. And one of the things it also does is insert restart markers. So these are basically a JPEG bit stream is initialized at the start of the file, and then it continues building up on that information. The amount of luminosity, for example, is initialized at the start of the file, and then each little building block of the JPEG, so-called MCUs, which are basically little blocks of 8 by 8 pixels, they build up on the information from the previous MCU. So it will not say, if we would regard luminosity a scale from 0 to 100, it will not say it will not record a value of 50, for example, or 60. But when the JPEG is initialized, it sets a value like 40, luminosity 40, and then the next MCU, it's slightly brighter or slightly darker or whatever. It will only record the delta compared to the previous MCU. And in a normal JPEG, this is initialized once. So if some corruption occurs somewhere halfway across the JPEG bitstream, then the lower half of the JPEG will be corrupt. It will affect the entire lower half. The restart marker thing, it will reinitialize the JPEG bitstream at regular intervals. So if a bit flips, for example, only a tiny portion of the JPEG is affected by the corruption. What we have here is an already corrupt file processed with Photoshop and then saved. The corruption inside the raw data of the JPEG file, of the original JPEG file, is no longer corruption inside the raw data. It becomes a part of the image as soon as it gets re-encoded by Photoshop. So if this image we have here got corrupted before it was ever opened and resaved with Photoshop, it's now part of the image. We can no longer fix it. We can no longer repair it by editing the raw data of the file. And to demonstrate, I can, for example, I have it open here. Let's close it. For example, what we could do is corrupt this on purpose. So I can take an arbitrary block of data and assume often it's either a bit or a couple of bits, or it's, for example, in an entire sector that gets corrupted. But let's do this. I select a bunch of data, and then I'm going to fill the selection with random bytes. Yeah, so basically that's how many files corrupt. And then I save it. Now I'm gonna save it in place. And if we now look at the file, we see even more severe damage than in the than your corrupt file. It looks as if the half of the image is gone. But we'll see that's not really the case. So if I now open this file, fixed, this file fixed, I tell it okay, I tell it repair. You see that it already made the entire bottom portion visible again. And then if we want, we can. So we find the start of the corruption. We see a little block of MCUs corrupted, just like in your original corrupt file. So I'm gonna click here. And I'm gonna load it into another tool and see if I can fix it. I realigned the image data. And now we see a lot of green. I think we can fight that. Too much. If we see a lot of greenish haze, it's either too little blue or too or not enough blue. Almost. Something like this. So we see we can sort of correct it, and all the tool does is not edit the canvas and then re-encode the JPEG file, but it edits the raw data and then shows you on the canvas what it would look like if we use that raw data to decode the JPEG file. But again, the file you offered on Reddit, this one, was corrupt, then loaded into a photo editor and then resaved. And at that point you can no longer patch, which is basically byte patching is what we did with the tool. You can no longer byte patch the JPEG data and fix it. So what you need to do, what you ideally, if you still have it, is the corrupt file, then you got straight out of camera and not the one that you edited in Photoshop. I hope I make sense.